The Democratic Alliance wants to introduce a new bill that would scrap broad-based black economic empowerment, that's BBBEE. The DA says BBBEE benefited a few politically connected people and should be replaced with a social compact. Let's discuss this now with Elias Monage, President of the Black Business Council, and Gwen Ngwenya, the DA's Head of Policy. A very good afternoon to both our guests, and thank you very much for joining us. Ms. Ngwenya, let me start with you. What is a social compact?
So we're calling it a social impact bill, and essentially it's the idea that within procurement processes we should find ways to assess a company's broad contribution to society, and we would use some of the goals articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals in order to do that. And it's not a novel practice. The infusing or embedding the SDGs into government procurement processes is a practice that's happening globally. So South Africa would not be alone in doing that.
Mr. Monage, how effective has BBBEE, how effective has it been, rather? What would your assessment be?
No, I think the starting point where we need to start is to share the understanding and the purpose of the BBBEE, so that we don't just jump and say, let us have another bill, or what the DA they call compact, social compact, and in which case I don't think they even understand what a social compact is. I mean, firstly, the primary purpose of the BBBEE Act and the codes is to address the legacy of apartheid and promote the economic participation of black people in the economy. Now, that's the starting point in which whether the BBBEE, the codes, and various other institutions that are established, I'm saying that is the starting point where we need them to look at this thing. And then secondly, we need them to say, despite the fact that we have the Act, are there any challenges in which the broader majority of the people in this country in which they are black, have they benefited? And if they didn't benefit, what are the challenges? So that we then address the challenges. For example, the key critical issues is around funding, a mechanism for black entrepreneurs and professionals. And now I guess Gwen, as the face of the DA being a black person, I guess she must hang her face or her head in shame to say only the black political connected people are the ones that are benefiting in terms of this. And that's not correct. I'm saying that's rubbish. That statement is nonsensical because it does not address the real issue that we're faced with. The third part that we need them to address to say, in the main, there are a number of things that we need them to draw lessons from. Firstly, in various sectors, we had what is called the ESOPs, the employee share schemes. And those schemes, they don't even worth the paper is written on. And it's not even empowerment. I mean, the critical aspects in terms of changing the patterns and the structure of the economy is around ownership, management control, and various other things. I mean, let me then deal with the fifth aspect in which I guess the DA, they premise on this notion that companies must basically contribute to the broader society. I mean, you know, in this country, in 28 years or so, even more than that, we had what is called corporate social responsibility or investments, where companies, they would basically go and donate a fence or erect a fence at a graveyard. This is a mining house or mining company or a company that is making bidons. They will basically then go and donate old computers to a primary school, whether they are 5 or 10, and we then call that, that's what the DA, they are calling that social competence. And that is nonsensical and rubbish to the highest degree, because that's not empowerment. Empowerment is around changing the patterns of ownership. That's the starting point. Secondly is around, you cannot then say you own and control, but you don't have management that runs and spearhead that ship. And this is one of the things that the BEE Commission deals with, the question of the execution of the BEE codes and the Act. And they've looked at various schemes of funding where companies, they will establish and create trustees or trusts, and they use the trust to circumvent the provision of ownership. They will circumvent the provision of the real empowerment. And these are not these are well-established companies that are doing this thing. And most of them...
Mr. Monage, let's allow please Ms. Ngwenya to come in and maybe just get her views. You've said quite a few things. Ms. Ngwenya, your response?
Yeah, I mean, I first want to say that, I mean, this is meant to be a panel discussion, not a monologue. And, you know, I do not take kindly to Elias's, you know, trying to tell me that as a black person I should hang my head in shame. I mean, he can talk to his own colleagues that way, but he mustn't dare come and try that kind of approach with me. I will think what I want. Thank you very much. But the point is that this is not a social compact. I mean, I don't know if there was some mistake in some media article or somewhere somebody changed the word social impact bill to social compact, but there was never a discussion about a social compact coming into this. It's about social impact. Impact investing is a well-known term in the financial community, in procurement, so there's zero confusion there in that regard. So what a social impact bill would do is assess the social impact, socioeconomic impacts that businesses have. Now, the issue about assessing it, so, you know, ideally businesses will make a variety of contributions, as the SDGs do. It's around 17 goals. And if you look at the legacy of apartheid, it doesn't just manifest itself in terms of, you know, ownership of shares in companies. The legacy of apartheid in South Africa is one of gross inequality in many areas, in healthcare, in spatial inequality, in the outcomes of our education system, etc. And if you're talking about something that will empower on a broad basis, then you have to address those issues. How many South Africans who are living in abject poverty in a township somewhere, who have not received a sound education, who are battling with public transport system that has failed, who are facing all of these challenges, are in a position to benefit from some tender where a B partner is involved? So let's not pretend that the kind of empowerment that BBBEE offers even reaches the majority of South Africans. What we are proposing is leveraging the enormous financial value and transactions that happen in government procurement and leveraging those into the areas that actually impact the majority of South Africans. So if we leave empowerment, if we leave the contribution that business can make only within the realm of ownership and management of companies, that is a very small elite group of black South Africans who are going to benefit from that. But if we say that actually in assessing a tender, we are going to look at a company's broader social contribution, then we actually force companies as well to look more broadly than just share ownership and management.
Mr. Monage,
so
Ms. Ngwenya speaks of...
That would be my question, is how would this scheme not benefit the broad majority when BE is a much narrower policy prescription?
Mr. Monage, Ms. Ngwenya speaks of structural, systematic and targeted empowerment, at least from what I can understand from what you have been outlining in the past few moments. So in achieving broad-based economic empowerment, how do we then realistically make this happen? Structural, systematic and targeted empowerment.
I think there is a key fundamental issues that we're not on the same page, and we'll never be on the same page, because she's denying the reality of this country and the way the economy is structured, because there is both political and ideological and state implemented some of these things for the past period. Okay, and I'm saying to you, if you want them to address the economic transformation, you need them to look at the structure. You cannot then just come with a wishy-washy, a paperless thing, whether you want to call it a social, whatever they want to call it. It's not addressing the key fundamental aspects in terms of a broader transformative agenda, where majority of the people, they need them to benefit in terms of changing the patterns of ownership. That's the starting point. Secondly, even if you want them to look at education is still embodied in what is called the skills development, because part of whether it's vocational training, all those aspects in terms of education, they are part and parcel of skills development, in which there are various pieces of legislation that currently deals with those issues. And then that's where we're basically saying, if yes, there are issues that need to be addressed, whether in terms of the gaps, we need them to identify the gaps and then deal with those issues. But to move from a premise that says we need them to scrap the BBBEE. I'm saying that is a misnomer. It's not going to happen because some of this piece of legislation, they were not just handed to the current government in a silver platter. People fought for these things. And I'm saying if DA, they are under illusion that majority of the black people are going to fold their arms and wait for DA. And again, that's why they're making mistakes. Secondly,
please allow me to ask you this. Has broad-based economic empowerment really empowered, as it is suggesting, broad-based? Has it empowered a majority of the black people that it was meant to empower in the beginning? Or you do mention that, yes, there are challenges, or has it only empowered a few elite? And if so, what then do you propose?
I'm saying, I said it even this morning, and even now I'm repeating again. I'm saying to you, there are challenges that need to be addressed. For example, the question of access to funding, it needs to be addressed. Because if we have a funding requirements that prohibits people to access a transformatory agenda, you don't basically then dish the entire act because there is a barrier for people then to enter into a transformatory agenda. You need them to say, what are the issues in terms of the financial models that they are out there. For an example, you then look at the question of what is called skin in the game. It's one of the barrier to a particular extent. Secondly, even if that is the case, you then look at number of people in various sectors, no matter they can be small, but they've done a meaningful participation in the economy in their own right because they had the means and the resources. But the bulk of the people that they don't have that, they still need access. Then that's where we're saying we need them to relook at access to funding. That's one thing. Secondly, we need them to look at markets to say, how then do we deal with markets? The third aspect, we need them to deal with procurement. We should not fool ourselves that, either Gwen will accept, maybe she's not even aware. The previous government, apartheid government, they've benefited at the expense of procurement, where state entities, number of people they've benefited, and I'm not talking about black people, I'm talking about white companies. They've built the economy at the back of state procurement. And this is one of the reasons why we have a triple FA, because the Preferential Procurement Act is one of the instruments that need them to unlock procurement from state, where you then transform and then bring the marginalized into the mainstream economy. And these are some
Point
of
well
the
taken,
that need to be addressed.
Monage. Ms. Ngwenya, just a closing thought from you. Yes, there are challenges with BBBEE, but do not do away with it. Just take a relook at some of the issues that are brought about. I guess that's the overarching message from Mr. Monage, and you still disagree?
I mean, there aren't just challenges with BBBEE. It's been an absolute disaster. It has not fulfilled any of its, foundational aims. So if you're looking at, BBBEE has not, resulted in broad-based empowerment, and it certainly hasn't resulted in empowerment of those who need it, who are disadvantaged and excluded from the markets. Instead, what it is the narrow empowerment of those who are already politically connected, or the wealthy elite. So, I mean, it's as simple as that, is that you can't look at South Africans in the eye and say that if you walk around in our townships, in our rural communities, if you go to our schools that are derelict, if you go to our hospitals, if you go to all areas which, these areas is what contributes to people who are not able to participate on an equal footing in the economy. You can't expect somebody who's a product of a failing education system, who suffers from spatial inequalities, cannot afford transport into areas of economic activity to look for work. All of those challenges contribute to the financial position of the majority of South Africans today. And if we cannot leverage corporate contributions to address those challenges, then we are going to continue to have an empowerment system that benefits those people who have already been enabled, or who have already been able to overcome those challenges. People like Elias himself and others who, in fact, no longer need a leg up. And there's no reason why we should have a system that continues to benefit the same individuals while the majority of South Africans remain locked out of the economy. So I have no doubt that those who are in Elias's position and others who are politically connected or who have already overcome those circumstances will be massive champions of BBBEE because it puts them at an advantage. I don't think someone who's living in an informal settlement who's the product of a township education is going to say that BBBEE is what's going to help him overcome his circumstances. And that's the person we have in mind when we introduce the social impact bill.
A big thank you to both our guests. But before we let you go, Ms. Ngwenya, if you'd please allow me to ask you in terms of reaction on news of Ms. Mbali Ntuli resigning from the Democratic Alliance.
Not quite sure what that has to do with the social impact bill.
Nothing at all, but I do have you on the line. So if you have any thought on that?
No, unfortunately, it wouldn't be in my, I'm the head of policy of the party. I don't comment on the, hiring or resignation of individuals into the party.
Thank you for that. I thought I could take advantage since I have you on the line. Thank you very much to both our guests for joining us. Elias Monage is president of the Black Business Council and Gwen Ngwenya is the DA's head of policy.